in terms of the units, which is what you're asking about, I think that within the decade, you're going to see a head-mounted display of some kind on basically every single head in the DoD. They're going to use it for different things. Some guys are just going to be checking their emails on a secure terminal. Others are going to be shooting people in the face. And you need to be able to support all those use cases. I don't see this as just like 10,000 units or 20,000 units. I see this as outfitting the entire armed forces. And so everything I'm doing is to try and build an architecture that scales to that. Everybody doing this with different sensors, different vision systems, different processors that are tailored to their specific mission, as light and as low cost as possible for their mission. And one of the things that Anduril's doing is actually taking extremely low margin and making a very, we're making a very concerted effort to drive the price of the system down, because I mean, I'll just lay it out there. Look, the Army has, call it $20 billion to buy headsets. If I price them at $100,000 each, then that means that there's some number of headsets that can buy. If I price them at a tenth of that, they could buy 10 times as many headsets. Which world do you think Palmer Luckey wants to exist?
Yeah.
I want this on everybody. So I am doing my damnedest to make this as low cost as possible, way beyond probably what is rational. I'm confident I could extract more money out of the DoD by playing the game, riding the margins as high as I can, taking advantage of the fact that what we have is so far ahead of every other competitor. I do not have it in my heart to do that. And you might say, but Palmer, how are your investors going to let you get away with this? And the answer is they will. They're going to let me get away with it because I am doing well as a company. We're doing well on, we're hitting our financial plans. We're hitting our metrics. We're growing faster than anyone ever bet we would 7 or 8 years ago. And so I'm in a position of not as much accountability as you might imagine. My investors aren't going to beat down my door and say, Palmer, why are you charging more money for IVAS? I can get away with pursuing my ideology, at least here and there on the margins.
You should do a Lockheed and just make one helmet. that way hold up and it arrives.
Well, I mean, you're probably kind of referring to the F-35, right? Where you've got this one jet that's everything to every. Yeah, I mean, that's a great thing to learn from. You know, a guy who's like, let's say an Army aviation maintainer who's working on helicopters. He probably needs something that is like a lightweight pair of Oakleys that is able to display work instructions, remote help, labeling particular things, checklists. He does not need a ultra wide field of view, thermal, UV, hyperspectral vision augmentation system like a frontline infantryman might. And so you kind of have to build something that unifies those two things so they can share one set of software, one set of apps, one set of common standards.
Maybe you want to get into this, maybe you don't. I don't know if there's a vision there or not, but in addition to the sci-fi visual stuff and all the other technology, I mean, is part of this just to rethink the helmet itself on basic level, like what it's made out of, and
we're doing a lot of really novel stuff on the actual ballistic shell to make it much. I can't give away the specifics here, but I've been an exotic materials enthusiast for many years. I years and years ago came up with a scheme for how you could make ballistic armor that was much lighter and much stronger than had been created in the past. And we've, over the last year, been doing some testing to try and actually prove out these ideas I've wanted to do for almost a decade. And the results are extraordinary. We're seeing performance that we wouldn't have believed until we actually tried it. And I can't give away the specifics, but I can tell you this.
Go ahead.
Look, I can just give away this. Look, I'll tell you this. Building helmets out of homogeneous materials, meaning you take a material, make a helmet out of it, that is not the way to get the lightest, strongest thing. Composite materials, where you combine multiple different materials that kind of cover each other's strengths and weaknesses, almost always make for a more optimal system in terms of weight to performance. And so imagine a multi-composite where you're using not just 2 or 3, but maybe even more materials, and you're actually designing them to do their part under the different stages of destruction that a helmet goes through as the helmet deforms and is penetrated. You can build some really interesting things that are far beyond what the United States has done so far on ballistic helmets. And I'd say one of the reasons that the US hasn't done these types of technologies in the past, it's not because I'm this genius who is smarter than everybody. It's because it didn't make sense when the helmet was this thing that was supposed to cost a few $100s. When a helmet was supposed to be this cheap thing that, you put on your head, it needs to work, but the whole system is pretty cheap. If you're instead building this kind of very expensive thing where you've got sensors, computers, radios, displays, optics, speakers, microphones, all this stuff integrated, you now need to look at it as an integrated product. And when you look at it as an integrated product, you always want it to be lighter, right? And so you start to ask, okay, where's the best savings per dollar, the best weight savings per dollar? So if I wanted to pull 100 grams out of this helmet, how can I do that the cheapest? Well, I'll tell you what, it's not pulling 100 grams out of the electronics. It's not pulling 100 grams out of the optics. It's not pulling 100 grams out of the microphones. It turns out that the place to invest money to save weight is in the actual physical ballistic shell itself. So all of a sudden, it actually makes sense in the context of an integrated system that costs quite a bit to, let's say, you can say, my helmet skin is going to cost $2,000. And in doing so, it's going to weigh 2 pounds less than it would have weighed otherwise. It finally makes sense. So we're doing some really exotic stuff to do better fragmentation protection, better rifle and small arms protection, better blast protection, concussion protection, hearing protection. A helmet does a lot aside from, carry your night vision system.
Okay.